Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. The Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities has raised serious concerns regarding the treatment and persecution of minorities in Bangladesh, issuing its strongest alerts to date, warning that the systemic misuse of blasphemy allegations against minority citizens has unprecedented and dangerous levels. The HRCMB report documented cases from more than 30 districts, revealing 73 blasphemy-related incidents against minorities. Of these, 71 incidents were against Hindus. The rights group has said that the spread and similarity of these cases now shows a very systemic vulnerability of minorities to religiously framed allegations rather than isolated incidents. Let's quickly take a closer look at this report, and also joining me on the broadcast is Mr. Dhiman Chaudhary, who's convener of the Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities. We're learning that he's currently in the United States, and we'll also be joined by another one of his colleagues shortly from now. Mr. Chaudhary, we've put out the report on our screens for our viewers to read as well. In the report, you have claimed that between January to November 2025, your association documented 73 blasphemy-related incidents in 32 districts. 73 of these were related to targeting minorities. 40 formal cases were filed, cases collected, numbers collected after contacting police stations. 5 cases where police refused to register complaints, 5 students expelled from education institutions, and 23 incidents are still under investigation. I just want to begin by asking you, for someone who's reading this report, how do they really believe what you're claiming?
Well, Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh. Thank you for the invite. Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities it has been operating in Bangladesh for 22 years. It is an NGO in special consultative status with the United Nations. We do have our proven track record for a long time. We have volunteers, over 2,000 active volunteers across Bangladesh, and every report that we do confirm that not only from the field, we do call in to the police station and make sure that we have documented the evidence, as well as we also record the conversation from the police officers. So whatever we are reporting is only the tip of the iceberg, meaning that the report that we are able to verify are being reported. There are cases where we have not been able to verify the report because either the family or the community is so afraid to report to us. In that case, it is not being recorded.
Okay, so 73 cases you've managed to put on record. How many such cases would you say you've not been able to put on record because you couldn't gather enough evidence or get any sort of confirmation? Any rough estimate on those numbers?
The total for the year would be around 100 or so. We know the 90 cases are already we have in record, out of which we just provided 73 that are related to minorities. There are several cases related to newspapers, and several cases related to the baul singers. And you have probably seen across the country, the fundamentalists are attacking baul singers, and they also have put the blasphemy allegation against the baul singer. Bauls are folk singers in Bangladesh. They are used to be well regarded across the country. Nowadays, they are being threatened.
Okay.
And yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chaudhary, I also just want to understand from you then quickly. You said that you've you've been operating for the past 20 to 22 years in Bangladesh. And of course, you've been tracking all sorts of cases, particularly targeted against minorities in Bangladesh. I then want to understand from you, given that you have this record, what is the difference between minorities that were targeted before 2024 and what is the difference in the cases that you see after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina and the political imbalance that has begun in Bangladesh? Is there any difference? And, and let me just clarify why I'm asking that reason, because the moment we raise this issue, we're told that, listen, it's a country, there are people, and there could have always been cases of minorities being targeted, and that it's not really because that the person is a minority they're being targeted, and that it's being painted as religious hate, which it's not. We've been told in India that you're trying to paint some sort of a narrative for the world that there is religious hatred on the rise in Bangladesh. That's the context for my question.
Okay, so I'll give you the transparent answer to it. Bangladesh, since its birth, never been a comfortable place for minorities in the country. Now, if you look at when we have born as a organization, it was 2001. During the time across the country, in places like Vola, they have wiped out like villages like Annoda Prasad, and we have in 2006 we have filed a litigation in Bangladesh about 15,000 women were at the time sexually violated or gang raped. After that case, there has been several other litigation leading then Awami League government in 2009 to initiate what we call is a judicial inquiry to what happened after BNP and Jamaat government went to the power in 2001 and during the elections. So from there, there was a judicial commission being formed under the Justice Shahabuddin, and it's called Justice Shahabuddin Commission, and there was a gadget being released. And if you go to, if viewers can go to our website, HRCBM.org, under litigation, the link is provided for that gadget. And on that gadget, the advocate who was acting as a prosecutor for the case has mentioned that the crime that was happening against minorities similar to what Germany has done in Poland during Second World War. Let's take that as a basis. During the time, we have rescued 44 children from 9-year to 11-year-old and placed them in an orphanage in Durgapur, Netrokona. So from that perspective, then came the Awami League government, and Awami League government was no better. Of course, the degree of the atrocities that we are seeing recently, since August 2004, it was lesser, but no better, right? So all government of Bangladesh has let down Hindus and other minorities in the country. And why specifically Hindu? Because major part of the minorities are Hindu. Now today what happening is that Hindus are considered almost, the section of the community has become very intolerant towards Hindus. And sometimes they consider Hindus like an agent of India. And any anger against India eventually comes against Hindus. So there is a correlation there about the hatred towards Hindus.
So I will come back to that in just a moment, but I really just wanted to establish that for our viewers that honestly minorities have really never felt safe in Bangladesh. As Mr. Chaudhary also pointed out, that this is a long-standing problem, and please do not for a moment think that because they've never been safe, so therefore, how does it matter? Why are we talking today? That's not the point. That's not the point that I'm trying to make at all. I'm saying they've literally never been safe in Bangladesh. And now, because of social media, because of such reports coming out, at least we have access to more information. We get to know more on a daily basis what is the state of minorities in Bangladesh. So this is why it's eye-opening to have this conversation. Mr. Chaudhary, I then want to understand from you, you said that minorities, specifically Hindus, are seen as agents of India. What patterns have you observed in the past 1 year since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, because she was also seen as someone very close to India or someone who established better relations with India? What are the patterns that you've seen in terms of narrative building within Bangladesh against India? Why is there such a problem with India, which is now translating into this hate for Hindus?
Well, it actually goes back into the preaching of the fundamentalists, and their inclination is more towards Pakistan and then towards India. Despite India's role in 1971, India has not been respected in the bigger and growing circle of fundamentalists. Now there are other people, those who are moderate, do like India, but in terms of fundamentalist, and there is what we are sensing, there is a geopolitical activities there. We are not ascertain, but these fundamentalists seems to be emboldened, and in more cases their activities are unchecked, meaning that it is being allowed to continue, the intolerance allowed to be continuous unchecked, despite all the reports are coming out. And sometimes, I will not say that in social media disinformations are there, but you cannot take one or two disinformation and discount that nothing is happening in the country.
Yes.
And the
But
government
Mr. Chaudhary,
to have
who then currently is emboldening these radicals in Bangladesh? Who's behind this?
So the way that is happening right after August 2004, there has been a change in the administration. Every element, and I would say a fundamentalist element, more likely has taken over part of the government, police forces, administration. If you look at the judiciary overnight got changed from Supreme Court down to the Sessional Judge Court. And if you look at the background, these are the elements within, and I will not say all of them, but within elements there are. It's not like meritocracy has allowed in the judiciaries or police forces or everywhere else. It's not based on merit. It's based on preferences. The placements are happening across the board.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Chaudhary, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX. Viewers, this report is available online, so we will urge you to find this report, and we'll also put it out on our social media platforms for you to see for yourselves what really is happening in Bangladesh. In another shocking instance of violence, a 40-year-old Hindu man, Bajendra Biswas, has been shot dead in Mymensingh, Bangladesh. Bajendra Biswas was a member of the Bangladesh Ansar, which is a paramilitary auxiliary force, and he was deployed at Sultana Sweets in the Baluka area. On the 29th of December, Bajendra's colleague, a 22-year-old Noman Mia, shot Bajendra on his thigh. Bajendra was rushed to the hospital but was declared dead on arrival. Co-workers have said that there were no previous instances of fights and arguments between the two. So this has become the third killing of a Hindu man in Bangladesh in the past 10 days. This comes after the brutal lynching and burning of Deepu Chandra Das, which sent alarm bells across the world, and then of course the case of Amrit Mondal. And now we're learning that a person belonging to the paramilitary force has also become the target of a minority attack. Ambassador Veena Sikri with us on the broadcast, Mr. S.P. Vaid with us as well. I want to begin this conversation with Mr. S.P. Vaid. Mr. Vaid, I don't know how much of the conversation you heard previously that we were having on the report that has now been issued as well on the attacks on minorities, specifically Hindus in Bangladesh. What we're putting on our screens, sir, are just 3 cases that we've seen in the past 10 days. But over 90 such cases have been reported in Bangladesh in the past 1 year. As I mentioned earlier, Bangladesh was never really a safe country for minorities. Hindus have always been targeted in Bangladesh. But that does not mean that we turn a blind eye to what's happening today, especially the circumstances under which it is happening today. What is it, Mr. Ved, that India needs to be prepared for? And is there anything that India can do at this point in time?
Good evening to you and my co-panelists and your viewers. See, as you said, ever since 1971, the minorities have been facing all this. And in fact, right at that juncture itself, it should have been done, a buffer state should have been created. And even the chicken neck should have been widened. And a secure area should have been given to the minorities, not only Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, and all the minorities, because we all knew how the preachings in madrasas and religious hate that is actually being preached in Pakistan, and Bangladesh was no different. After all, it was earlier in East Pakistan. So now coming to your question at what can be done now at this juncture, I think Bangladesh, we have been treating it always as a friendly country as far as my own country is concerned. But look at the general sentiment, what Mr. Chaudhary was mentioning, that it even in 71, if you recall, the Razakars, the Jamaat-e-Islami, supported Pakistan Army in committing atrocities which UN has recorded. I think lakhs of women were raped and about 3 million people were killed. So that is, the whole world has seen that UN findings on 71 atrocities of Pakistan Army, but primarily Punjabi Muslim Army of Pakistan. So in spite of that, in spite of India's role, huge sacrifice, what is that? A section of Bangladeshis, I wouldn't say everyone in Bangladesh hates India, but section of Bangladeshis, particularly Razakars, Jamaatis, hardliners, the radicals, they actually hate India. That is what one gets impression of reports coming from there. And minorities in such atmosphere, I don't think they were getting justice, any protection from the judicial setup in Bangladesh, even the police and the administration. Now, of what difference has come with Mr. Muhammad Yunus coming in power? As you know, what the first step Muhammad Yunus took is released all the terrorists and radicals who were in jail, withdrew their cases. That encouraged them. The open lumpen elements dominating the streets, going rampage on the minorities, because minorities were the most vulnerable, and putting blasphemy charges on anybody. You owe money, you have an enmity. It's very easy to set a person and kill him. So we have seen this happening with a Sri Lankan citizen in Pakistan. So now what can India in such circumstances do? See, there is a deep-rooted conspiracy in what happened in Bangladesh, the regime change, how the role of America, deep state, and Western powers. You can even judge from the reactions of their in the killing of student leader, the so-called student leader, and the lynching of a Hindu man. Not a word for him. And he was nobody in Bangladesh, the kind of accolades all the Western powers, European Union, Germany, France, UK, American embassy put on that student, the so-called student leader radical who was and hate India hater, was so prominent. You know, they in fact they by their actions they exposed their intentions. So in such circumstances, there is a feeling here in India that India is being dragged in this situation, making Bangladesh as another, you know, Zelensky's country, Ukraine, making Bangladesh as India's Ukraine. So India doesn't want today. India's priority is to move ahead and progress, lift its poverty and become a economic power. Today, India is already fourth largest economy and on way to become third largest very soon. So I think this is not liked by some of the Western powers, and even China sees India as a competitor. So there's a power play going on in Bangladesh. So India doesn't want to get dragged in long war, but you can't be silent to the atrocities on the Hindu minority and other minorities in Bangladesh. I think it is time that India has to take a very serious call, and even to the extent of diplomatic pressures, to the extent of using the influence India has in terms of so many things. Bangladesh is dependent on India. You have been seeing requests from Bangladesh coming for rice, for electricity, for so many things. Bangladesh, being a very close neighbor, almost historically connected with India, is dependent on so many things in India. So I think those pressures could be built, but then you have to keep an option of which India doesn't want, the armed option as well. But I only wish that that is avoided as long as possible. I think at one time you may have to widen your, as Sadhguruji mentioned, that chicken neck will have to be made elephant, and
Yes.
a buffer zone has to be created where minorities can be safely, they can live a dignified life. That's it.
Okay, Ambassador Sikri, bringing into the conversation, ma'am, I want to understand from you, and it's a troubling pattern that we're now noticing in our neighborhood. We saw what China was up to in Sri Lanka and Maldives, and there was a lot of radicalism that was being pushed, and it was ultimately resulting in this bizarre hate for India. The same toolkit now being applied to Bangladesh, which has recently gone back to better ties with Pakistan. My question then to you, ma'am, is on a daily basis we're reporting some of these fabricated and absolutely bizarre cases of inhumane atrocities coming out of Bangladesh. But as far as the Indians now working in Bangladesh is concerned, what does this really means for them, and do we really need to now take a call on what to do? Do we call back people who are working in Bangladesh, who are Indians, who are Hindus? How do we go about this?
I don't know exactly what you have called this discussion about. If we are discussing Mr. Dhiman Chaudhary's report, which is a very important report, and I suggest we focus on that and don't go off the tangent on talking about the world situation and other situations. If we are talking about the condition of the minorities in Bangladesh, please remain focused on that. And I think that Mr. Dhiman Chaudhary's report is a very important one, and we have to see what is to be done about the condition. Now, one of the questions that comes up, which is very also important, and I'm sure Mr. Dhiman Chaudhary has faced this also, that in Bangladesh today, it is the overall law and order situation which has deteriorated. And so they say as part of it, it is the Hindus. Now, here we have to really do a little broader context of what Mr. Chaudhary's report is, and we have to point out what was happening earlier and what is happening now. It is true what Mr. Chaudhary is saying, that it was happening earlier, but in earlier there was a check on it. You can say that yes, under Sheikh Hasina some things were happening, but there was always control and check on it. So the incidents were never allowed to go out of the case. But today, when you have repeated, like in 1 week, 3 very cruel lynchings, and today the person has been shot dead by his colleague in the Ansar, just saying, shall I shoot? And he shoots him in the leg and the person dies. So there's a kind of total laxity, it's barbaric actually. It's not 21st century, but it's completely barbaric, that you're just allowing the Hindus to be killed one by one. I think this should be the focus. And what should we do about it? So please, if you are going to discuss a subject, focus on it. And I think we should see that this cannot be allowed to continue. Yes, it is a part of the overall deteriorating situation in Bangladesh. That too should be highlighted. The condition of women in Bangladesh. They're not allowed to go on the streets. Any visitor to Bangladesh is not advised to step outside because it is so dangerous. That is the situation. But I think the situation of the minorities today, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and the Ahmadiyas, the Muslim and non-Muslim minorities. The Baul Singhal is another very good example of how you are using the cultural focus, whether it is Durga Puja Pandal, whether it's the Baul singers, you're using that and telling them this is not a part of Islam, so now we can kill you, we can do whatever we want to you. I think that narrative has to be created and brought to the world in a way that it is understood and it's not dismissed. Because today what is happening is that the majority, the part of the world is keeping silent. They talk about human rights all over the world. They talk about all kinds of incidents all over the world. But in Bangladesh, where you can narrate one after another incidents of women being raped and lynched and properties being burnt and people being forced to resign their jobs, whether a Hindu primary teacher or a Christian primary teacher or a professor from Chittagong Hill Tracts or a Hindu professor, those instances have to be, the focus has to be on that. And how are we going to get the world to recognize that what is happening there is dangerous and has to be stopped?
Okay, all right. Mr. SP Ved, quickly bringing you back into the conversation. So I'll just give some context for the reason why I asked this question. We've been discussing Bangladesh in this particular context of minorities being attacked since last year. Since last year, we've not managed to, as a country, really get the globe's attention on what's happening in Bangladesh. There could be some sort of a toolkit that has been activated and countries are just choosing to remain silent on what's happening. In that context, Mr. Ved, then I pose my question to you, which comes from a place of concern for people of my own country, about 20,000 of whom are currently in Bangladesh. What would be your advice, sir, to the government right now? Is there something to be worried about? Should we be focusing on putting out some sort of alerts for Indians in Bangladesh? Because as Mr. Chaudhary himself pointed out, that it's hate for India that translates ultimately into hate for Hindus in Bangladesh. That's the context for the question that I asked. Mr. Ved.
Absolutely. It is basically hate for India that is getting transformed in attacks on the minorities, including Hindus, the Hindus being the major minority. The Indian nationals, I think India has already issued advisory and alerted that don't visit. Those who are already there, I think whatever steps government can think of, maybe asking them to return or arrange their special flights, as we have been doing in all other disturbed areas. From Ukraine, we got people back to India. From many other conflict zones. I think that government must be working on, and we must do that, because as many people, a number of people you are able to evacuate from such a country, because as Madam Sikri was saying, absolutely, earlier there was semblance of law. There is absolutely no law. There is no fear of law, because what Mr. Yunus did is, after taking over, he was installed by Western powers out of the blue, and then all hell broke out. He made the Home Secretary the commander of the terrorist outfit. Imagine the fate of that country, and the way these lumpen elements went around, made Chief Justice of the country resign. What kind of law and order is there? I think about 400, 500 policemen were butchered. Army is not coming out openly. It's not, I don't know their reasons, but the police system has absolutely failed. Where is law and order there? Where is rule of law? Earlier, the minorities were under attack, but there was some fear, as Madam Ambassador was saying. But today, it is all free for all. I have an enmity with my neighbor. I just put blasphemy charges on him and burn him, lynch him. Because I owe 1 crore rupee to him. I would 1 crore takas to him. I don't want to pay. So it's so easy. Similarly, it's a free for all in Bangladesh today. There is no semblance of law. So that I agree with Madam. You highlight all these atrocities and make Bangladesh answerable to the world in different forums. But my caution is, don't depend on the outside sport only. These Western countries are they will react only where their interest is there. Ultimately, we will have to do something on our own. We can't depend on US and European Union and all these people. They are not bothered. They are actually ignoring all these atrocities. Do you think they don't know what is happening? They all know. They are just ignoring it. All world media, everyone knows it. They don't even give one line for the atrocities on Hindus in Bangladesh. Look, read any media network of Western countries, the New York Times,
Yes.
Washington Post. They don't give coverage to it. They were talking of that that student leader. What was his name? Who was shot by unknown gunman. He gets complete coverage as if he was holding a constitutional post, but not a word of sympathy for this innocent person who was lynched just because he was a Hindu. So
Yes.
this is the attitude of the world powers. Yes.
Absolutely. And that's the reason why we are on a daily basis having this conversation on NewsX. I've unfortunately run out of time, but I thank all of our guests for joining us. And like I said, Mr. Dhiman, the report is available online, viewers. You should be able to find it on hrcbm.org. That's what you need to search for. With that, a short break.